Episode 007, Martin Barre. Martin Barre is best known as the guitarist in the legendary classic rock band, Jethro Tull. One of my favorite bands. Martin and Ian Anderson, frontman and flautist of Jethro Tull, parted ways a while ago, and Martin's current project is the Martin Barre Band. They play, among other material, deep cuts from the Tull catalog. I got to catch them live the last time they played LA, and I love what they do. About 9 years ago, I got to interview Ian Anderson, and I asked him about the split between him and Martin. All these years later, I get Martin's side of the story. As is often the case with these things, their stories are not the same. The audio is a little different on this interview. Martin was having a hard time with the recording link as it's web-based and he was traveling in a tour van. Not wanting to miss my opportunity, I put my phone on speaker, held it up close to the microphone, and made the best of the situation. Despite the hurdle, I still had a wonderful conversation with him. Please welcome to the show, Martin Barre. So you guys did a 50th anniversary tour for the Aqualung album recently, which I got to catch live. I loved it. And there's another Jethro Tull album that came out in 1972 that a lot of people really cared about. So I got to ask, are there any plans for a similar theme tour for that album?
We sort of, it ran its course. We did it with Clive Bunker, and it was called, Celebration of Aqualung Tour, and we played the whole album. And coincidentally, we're going to South America in a couple of weeks, and that's what the show we're going to give them. But it's 2 years postponed. So I like to move on. You know, I don't like to do. Say we do the Northeast. I've done the 50 years tour. I've done the Aqualung tour. The next one's got to be a step up and a step forward, which is what we're doing. So I call it a brief history of Jethro Tull, and it's sort of deep cuts, really cool tracks that people don't necessarily expect. So I'm not going for the cheap, easy shots of playing all the big hits, but they love the choices because these are the songs that they will never hear from anywhere at all. So it's worked really well, but it's a 2-hour show as always, and it specifically sort of runs through the whole history of Tull. So in a way, it's a similar theme, but the music and the way I put it together, it's very theatrical. It's got an amazing video backdrop. It's a more theatrical, intimate, intricate show.
Mm-hmm. Will there be a 50th anniversary tour for the Thick as a Brick album?
Well, you know, Ian did a Thick as a Brick tour about 10 years ago, I think. You know, when he decided to disband Jethro Tull, he then did a Thick as a Brick anniversary tour. So it's been done. I mean, that wouldn't stop me because I've got the bunch of musicians that I work with are just amazing. You know, that the singer is phenomenal. You know, he can attack all of those songs with a great voice, and they sound just, you know, refreshed and as new. Yeah, there's possibilities, but I've got a little plan for 2025.
Oh, nice.
But I'm quite excited. And it'll have a connection with Tull, but it'll be a lot more on top of that. And I'll let you know. It's still a little germ of an idea, and I've got to make sure that I'm making the right decision. But it'll be a big show. But 25.
All right. Well, I'm excited. So you kind of touched on this, and I wanted to ask you about it. As you've been putting together, you know, your project, and the goal is, of course, to celebrate the catalog of Tull and doing it the way you want to do it. What was your process in putting together this band? You mentioned Dan, which I just got to say as a fan, I think Dan is doing an absolute excellent job. I think he was such a stellar choice for that role. So talk a little bit about your process there.
Yeah, the guys, there's four of us. That's the bass band, the core band, and then we add other, maybe a guest keyboard player or the girl singers come with us. But essentially, the four of us do everything we need to do. There's lots of space. Nothing's missing. And in some ways, it's better because it's not as cluttered as a bigger band would be. Dan, Alan, and myself play keyboards. I'm playing flute. But there's not one element missing at all. So it's a really efficient unit, which sounds a bit cold, but my goodness me, we can do anything. We've got a pool of material we can draw from, and but one night we'll say, should we play that one track we played 8 years ago? Okay, and we do it. It's they're just great people to work with, and that they are the best.
So you were originally a flautist, which is how you initially came in contact with Ian. I have heard the story of how Ian migrated to the flute, but I don't know yours. How did you find your way to the flute?
I think in a different way. I started guitar when I was 14, and I bought a flute when I was 15. So it was always a sort of a side elements of what I wanted to do in music. But I loved flute play. I like Frank Wes. I liked Roland Kirk. I can't even think of the names of these jazz flautists that I love the tone quality and classical flute as well. So it really, I really enjoyed playing it. But it was always secondary to the guitar playing. Ian realised he was never going to be a superstar guitar player, so just thought the flute, okay, there's a big hole there. And very cleverly, he made that a rock instrument. But I think I played flute probably 4 years before he did. So it's a shame because I'm bringing it back into what I do now. But I've always shied away from it because I don't want people to think, oh, he's playing flute, he's trying to be like Ian. It's a bit of a stigma, but I'm over it, and I'm really enjoying my flute playing again. So it's in there.
So I interviewed Ian about 9 years ago now. I checked the date actually shortly before this. And I of course, asked about your you no longer being with the band, which it was a little more recent at the time. And he said that he had long been encouraging you to kind of do your own thing. You had interest in doing that. So you guys talked about it, and he just gave you his blessing, and you were going to go do your own thing. Your side of the story seems to be a little different. I know it's not your favorite topic in the world, and understandably so, but I was wondering if you could give me your side of it.
I think it's very unfair to put that story about because it's totally untrue. And, I love Ian. I wish him all the best in everything he does. He's a very talented musician and an amazing songwriter. And my life is partly dedicated to keeping the brand of Jethro Tull alive. But that never happened. I was never encouraged by anybody other than myself to do my own projects, which I did whenever there was time available. But no, I got no help at all. I got no support from the record label, from any of the agents we worked with, from any of the promotion promoters. The door was closed on me. And not just by Ian, but by everybody to do with Jethro Tull. So it was very, very upsetting. And I'm a survivor. I'm a fighter. And maybe another person would have just said, you know what, I'm going to retire. But no, that's not me. So I everything I did was from scratch, and I literally had to beg, borrow, steal gigs on my knees to promoters, give me a chance. And they weren't interested because they just want Jethro Tull. They didn't even want, the Ian's solo projects. It's famously a diluted product. Mick Jagger does a solo tour. He'll sell hundreds of the tickets that the Stones would do. It's well documented. So I really had my back against the wall, but I promise you I got no help from anybody.
So is it fair to say that leaving Jethro Tull was not your choice?
No, it was not my choice at all. Ian, we were doing an American tour, and it was a very strange atmosphere. And the reason was because he was planning all these projects, including Thick as a Brick, without talking to me or Doan, the drummer. And we thought, and naively I thought, he knows I can play it at the drop of a hat, so he doesn't need to talk to me about it. But essentially he was planning beyond this day when he sat me and Doan down in a hotel, and he said, I'm finishing Jethro Tull. The group won't exist. I'm fed up of the rock audiences, the noise. I just want to do my own thing. Maybe one day I'll start it again. But he said, I've had enough, and I'm finishing. I'm not going to play Jethro Tull shows anymore. And that was it. That was the end. So, and it's people can, but I don't have any burden from any of that. But it was a very one-sided decision. I was never part of any plan, and neither was Doan. So we were just, the rug was pulled from under our feet, and that's what happened.
So, getting to a more happy topic, I've listened to a lot of the interviews around the recording of the Aqualung album, how you guys were in the smaller room near Led Zeppelin. So I've heard some of those stories. But one thing I particularly wanted to ask you about is I will openly tell you, and I'm not just trying to flatter or anything, but I can honestly say that my favorite guitar solo in all of rock and roll is the Aqualung guitar solo. Every time I've ever seen you or Jethro Tull live, which I've seen both, and last time I saw Jethro Tull, you were there, I am on my feet for that solo, regardless of what other people in the audience do. So I wondered if you'd be willing to do me the honor of give me some insight into the recording of that guitar solo.
Yeah, it's sort of a well-documented story about Jimmy Page being in the control room while I was playing it live. I mean, in those days, you had one or two shots at a solo, and that was it. That there was no luxury of editing or dropping in, so that they were very much off the wall, which I think is a great thing because those days are now long gone. Everything's so manufactured. However, Led Zeppelin were in the studio below us, Arden Records, in London, and that they'd been recording for about a month, the same as us, and we hadn't seen each other. We obviously knew them all, and we knew they were busy, and they knew we were busy. But he obviously had a 10-minute break, and he came up to say hello. And the point he walked into the control room, I was in the studio playing the solo, and he was waving at me, smiling, and I just thought, if I waved back, I'd blown the solo, so I just had to turn around and carry on. It's hilarious. I'm sure he understood, but that was the solo. It was that's the one that's on the record. So he was there, and it was all. I wrote the arrangement for the solo and the chords to make it give room to apply a lot of melody with the chord changes, but it was just off the wall. It was just totally improvised.
Do you still have a moment when you launch into that solo live? I mean, you know how much it means to so many people. I mean, do you still really feel the rush?
Yeah, I do. But I own it. It doesn't own me. So we haven't played Aqualung now for a year, and we'll be playing it in South America. But I don't. It's no big deal. I just think I want people to have a fresh show. And in the latter days of Tull, the show never changed. Maybe a couple of songs, but it stayed pretty well the same. And we had a lot of comments from the punters saying, were you doing the same show we got last year? And that's not my way of doing business. So I really want to change things every year. And I also, as I said earlier, I don't want to be obvious. I don't want to be predictable. Oh, yeah, we're going to see Martin. He's bound to play Aqualung. No, he isn't. He might. I just give it a rest. But when I play it, I love it. And I will never play anything because I have to. I'm just a very stubborn person. And if somebody says, well, you can play here for $1 zillion, but you're going to have to play Aqualung, I go, no. Well, maybe I would say yes, but it's. I feel that I want to be in control of what I'm doing.
So the other track I wanted to ask you about, as far as the creative process, I listened to an interview with Ian many years ago where he talked about how when you guys were recording Locomotive Breath, it was very much put together in studio. Only he knew how the song was supposed to be arranged. What's your side of the production of that song? What was your experience like with that?
It's funny. There's a lot of stories that Ian's Woodstock story isn't the same as mine either. But anyway, that's another story. But no, we sort of had problems putting good backing tracks together in the Aqualung. I mean, it was a very tense, stressful album to make, and we struggled to make it sound good and feel good. Although you can't hear it in the finished product, but we weren't gelling as a band to put down rhythm tracks and without pointing fingers, because essentially it's four of us. We struggled with Locomotive Breath because obviously it has that, compelling rhythm. It's like a train. It's hammering through that song. It doesn't detract 1 second from the tempo or the feel. It's a train going down a track. So we tried everything to get a good backing track. And in the end, Ian said, look, I'm going to put a metronome on. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play the bass drum, which he did. And that was the backing track. So we sort of added drums to the bass drum and then guitar, bass. Yeah, the arrangement, we already knew the arrangement. We just didn't find a good way of putting it into a great feel. I mean, the intro was, again, was me, and I did that, in a couple of takes with the piano part. But the song, we essentially, you try anything to get a song right and to get it on tape with the right feel.
So you play the intro piano on the recording, not John Evans?
No, me and John played piano and the guitar bits I played, in between. It was all live. Yeah, that was a separate recording, all live.
Gotcha. So I know you only got a minute or two left here, but I had to tell you, I noticed when you guys did Wind Up Live, this is getting back to your current band, it was very, very true to form. You even included the whistle at the appropriate time. However, I did notice that nobody did the barking that I believe Jeffrey Hammond did on the album. So I want to cordially let you know that I am available for that job should you ever decide to bring somebody into the fold. I would.
That's really funny you say that. Right, I'm going to put that right, and you can come and bark anytime.
Oh,
I think it's on the Passion Play edit we do as well. That there's a whistle on that, but I can't play it because it's so hard to play the song. So we have one of our fans, but when they come to the gigs, that they get in the front row and blow the whistle. But there's also a dog on that one, and Alan, the bass player, started doing it in Dan's ear. That makes him laugh. But yeah, I love all those things. I mean, we have samples. So when we do War Child, we got the explosions, we got all the war noises. When we do Bungle in the Jungle, we got all the animals, and I play Serenade to a Cuckoo. It's got all the. I mean, I just think it's part of all that songwriting, music writing experience, and I love all those little additions. It's the colouring. As you know, the main ingredients, the vital parts of it. I just want to make people smile. You know, that they hear a weird noise, it make them think, "Oh, okay, yeah, that should be there." And the whistle, I love it. I love playing the whistle. It's my favourite part of the evening. I'm amazing on the whistle.
I loved it. No, well, you know, it was just. From where I was sitting in the audience, I couldn't necessarily tell what it was. There was just this thing dangling off of your mic stand, and I thought, "What's that for?" And then I realized what it was for at that moment, and I did love it.
Yeah, well, that's perfect because that's why I do it. I have it dangling there, so people are thinking, "What?" And then, of course, it's at the end of the show, so they're left waiting to the last second, but. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a show. It's entertainment, and I want to make people smile, shout, get up and go crazy if they want to. There's no barriers. It's a two-way event. The audience feed the band feed the audience. That's the way I want it. So yeah, if there's something I can do to make it more fun. Because prog music cannot be serious. You cannot be serious. It's too boring. So you've got to make it fun all the time. Entertain. That's what I am. I'm an entertainer.
Well, Martin, thank you for being so generous with your time. I'm glad I got to talk to you. So, sorry about the StreamYard link. In closing, is there anything that you want to mention or plug? We'll, of course, have the link to all your tour dates, but anything in particular that we didn't cover you'd want to mention?
No, it's hard work. It's a crazy tour, and we get days with 2 hours sleep. We get 400-mile drives before a show, 500. It's the whole touring thing is really tough, but the band rise to the challenge. We did a gig in Edwardsville. And we literally had 2 hours sleep. The crew drove through the night to get to the gig because it had been badly routed. But you know what? It's one of the best shows of the tour because we just thought, you know what? That can't. It's a challenge. You can't let that beat you. The people in the audience deserve the best, and adrenaline and determination. And the old showbiz spirit kicks in, and there you go. I mean, we had a great show.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. I look forward to catching you guys live again in the future, and I will work on my barking skills for the occasion.
Yeah, please let me know. Yeah, I'll get a mic set up for you.
Deal.
Low down on stage because it'll be on all fours. Be a proper bark, get the right intonation.
Perfect.
You might need a disguise as well.
Yes, anyway. Costume and everything. All right, yeah. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that was Martin Barre. Music for the 1000 podcast is provided by Andrew Saxena. Check out his podcast, the Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I said podcast a lot in that sentence. And if you would, please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to support this show on the sustainability end, you can do so over patreon.com/romplacone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of cool perks. I'll make you a theme song. You get the 1000 episodes before they're released to the public. You get to see my films before they're released to the public. And we are having an additional 1,000 bonus podcast featuring myself and Andrew Saxena. That's going to be starting up real soon. So patreon.com/romplacone. That was Martin Barre. 7 episodes in, we got 993 more to go. We've already had a legendary punk singer, a legendary guitar player in the classic rock space, the editor of the Black Agenda Report, a tech policy expert, an up-and-coming incredible UK singer-songwriter, and we're just getting started. We haven't even reached number 10 yet. See you guys next week. Hey guys, Romplacone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1,000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then join our Facebook group. It's called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1,000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1,000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.